Hey everyone, what's up? I'm Max Patton and I have an Apple Watch Ultra, which I reviewed several months ago when it came out. I was very positive about it. I still am in some ways, but I have some things to get off my chest because, well, as a former Garmin user, I have some frustrations with how this Apple Watch Ultra has panned out and is currently panning out. So Apple has gone after the market of us crazy endurance athletes with Apple Watch Ultra. They've promised more battery life, more advanced features, more advanced navigation. In their ads, they have mountaineers and crazy avalanche conditions using it, pro trail runners, ultra runners, triathletes, all kinds of people. And as a triathlete myself, I was super stoked on Apple Watch Ultra. And if you watch my video from several months ago, I was impressed that with cellular turned on, the battery life through a torture test was able to actually last a full day with a very long cycling workout. So that was super impressive. But there's some things that have gone wrong with this that I want to mention. Chiefly is, well, the altimeter. So might sound like a stupid thing, but your watch, if you have a modern fitness watch, should show you the height you're at, right? The above sea level. Here in Boulder, Colorado, that should be 5,300 feet. Well, my Apple Watch for the last few weeks has not had a working altimeter. It'll read 11,000 feet, which is 6,000 feet more than I should be at. And I don't know what caused this, whether it was going on an airplane, taking a hot shower, Lord knows. I've looked all of this up on the internet, and I'm not the only one with that issue. But I didn't make this video to talk about that specific issue. That is an issue, and I contacted Apple about it, and their support is gonna have me run some diagnostics about it. They know it's an issue. It seems like a software thing. Every company has software issues. I'm not here to rag on Apple about that. What I am here to rag on Apple about, though, are some of their decisions regarding the design of this watch. So in terms of the actual hardware, I think they've done a great job. When the altimeter is working, it's reasonably accurate. The GPS works great. The heart rate sensor is really good. There's a lot, the band that it comes with. I have the Adventure Loop, I think, or the Alpine Loop, whatever it's called, the one that's for hikers. It's a good one. And there's a lot of capability here, but here's my main complaint. Software. It's not just the software bugs, every company has those, but Apple has a few more than Garmin, let's say. And I get it, the Garmin, Epix, or the Phoenix, those are dedicated sports and fitness watches. They don't come anywhere close to the Apple Watch in terms of being a smartwatch. That's why I kept my Apple Watch and sold my Garmin Epix watch, because I liked it so much. But that Garmin, as dumb as it was, I miss a lot of stuff about it. So the software chiefly just working, because it's not just the altimeter. I've had several weird bugs and issues on the Apple Watch Ultra, and when you're in the middle of a long workout or you just want to save something, it's so frustrating. Some of those are bugs and some of these are deliberate design decisions. So I'll just give an example. As a triathlete, I swim a lot, and now that it's winter, and it's too windy to bike outside, I like to swim a lot in the pool. And Apple Watch has never, in my opinion, been a great watch for swim workouts, even though it has the potential to be. Why? Well, after using a Garmin, I really miss being able to have a drill log. So let's say you're kicking or you're pulling or you're not doing your normal stroke. You want to log that separately in your workout. The Apple Watch is native swim workout app doesn't support that feature, just doesn't have it. And yes, I know there's third-party apps, but that's kind of the story of the Apple Watch Ultra, isn't it? The native first-party workouts kind of suck, except for running. Apple did a lot this year for runners, and it's great. They put your heart rate zones up. You can design custom workouts. It'll automatically detect when you're at a track. It'll do wrist-based running power estimations. It's really powerful for runners. But like that example I just gave for swimmers, no drill log, what the hell? Also, this is vanity, but when I export my swim workouts to Strava using the built-in Strava and Apple Health integration, it doesn't account for my rest time, so it makes my swimming look a lot slower than it should be. And I have to use a third-party app like HealthFit to actually export my swims properly. So you really have to be a nerd and get into geekery to actually get the Apple Watch Ultra to work with a lot of the athletic ecosystem. With Garmin, this stuff just frankly works because Garmin users, Garmin, yes, they have Connect, but they know you're going to use Strava. They know you're going to use Training Peaks and apps like that. So they work with them very well. And Garmin's built-in workout apps are so powerful. Yes, running, I think, like I said, Apple's caught up, but swimming, it hasn't. Cycling, it's a joke. They advertise this watch being for the outdoorsy crowd, the mountaineer, the people who are getting out there and, of course, doing, long bike rides and things like that. Well, why does this watch not have offline maps? I get it, Garmin's a map mapping company. It's hard to compete with them having topographic maps of the entire Earth. But guess what Apple has? Apple Maps. And also they're like the richest company in the world. So I fail to see why when launching the Ultra, they didn't make a big splash and announce offline mapping functionality. Lord knows, I mean, this watch has like, I think 32 or maybe 64 gigabytes of storage on it. And Apple is like, you know, a big ass company with a huge software team. I'm sure they could figure out some way to compress topographical Apple Maps so that you could get offline maps when you're hiking, biking, etc. With a Garmin, I can, you know, generate a route on the fly with a loop because it has, I think I had most of North America downloaded on mine. There's some watches you can get that you can basically download most of the Earth onto and just have it built into the watch. This is something that I think Apple really should do for the Ultra, and I was super disappointed that that's not a feature. Also, on the point of native workouts, not just cycling, not just swimming. You know, I'm not a huge climber, but I have friends who are. And the Garmin watch, if you're like bouldering, you could have a specific climbing workout that would like ask you, oh, are you doing a V8? Are you doing a V10? Like you could basically put in your kind of attempted bouldering sessions, and the watch was really intelligent about that. The Apple Watch's climbing modes are frankly a joke. They don't really log your like, well, how far you climbed or which kind of climbs you did. They just track your heart rate. And then if you're like into paddleboarding or sports like or kayaking, there's no GPS logging, which makes no sense because those are sports you would do outdoors. You might want to see how far you went. They won't really do that. Yes, again, you can use a third-party app. Sorry, it's very windy outside. I hope the audio is fine. But you can use a third-party app, and you shouldn't have to do that. That's my big issue, is that like you have to engage a third-party app. I will shout out Work Outdoors. It's amazing for a lot of these apps. It does the paddle sports really well. I think there's like apps like My Swim Pro that do better swim tracking. If you're a skier, Slopes is a really good app. But why doesn't Apple just have this stuff built in? Because Garmin does. And I have a suspicion, it's not just incompetence, I think it's part of Apple's business model. So one of the things about Apple Watch Ultra that I really like actually is the price. It's $899. When they came out of the gate with that price, even though that might sound like a ridiculous amount to people, you know, not familiar with fitness watches, it's actually quite competitive because the Garmin Epix, if you get the, you know, one with titanium and sapphire, the same materials as this Apple Watch, is $1,000. And Garmin also has like an even fancier lineup of watches like the Mark series and Descent watches for divers that are, you know, well into the $1,000 and $2,000 range. So Apple had a competitive price for what was supposed to be the flagship watch. But I don't think Apple is, I mean, they are making hardware margins, don't get me wrong, but I think Apple really cares a lot about 30% that they get from subscription revenue and from other revenue from third-party apps. And I get it, you know, it's good to have an ecosystem. I like the flexibility. It's great that developers can make a living making apps for the Apple Watch, but I shouldn't have to depend on an app to get what I think is basic athletic functionality. And that is my big disappointment. I mean, so I'll give them my example, right? The Slopes app, fantastic app, $30 a year subscription, you know, kudos to that developer, it's a great app. But why doesn't Apple just have a decent built-in skiing mode? I mean, again, biggest company in the world. They could build in functionality to have trails for all of the resorts and also like golf courses if you're a golfer. Garmin does all of these things that I'm mentioning and more. Apple doesn't. And when you're competing this directly, it's one thing when you have a general purpose smartwatch, but when you have what's supposed to be an endurance adventure smartwatch, this is frankly table stakes. So there's that. And you know, I think Apple really enjoys the prospect of not having to work and make their own good apps and being able to take 30% of other people's revenue, which is their model. And I think, frankly, it's how they want to scale it. I know I'm being very cynical. You know, there are good things about the Apple Watch, and I genuinely believe Apple engineers care about making a good product. But aside from running, I just don't think their native workouts that are built in are good. And I will say one more thing in this video. I know it's been very ranty, but a fundamental design decision of the Apple Watch is that it's a touchscreen watch. That's great as a smartwatch, but athletes know touchscreens don't always work. Like for instance, on the Apple Watch, if you engage a swim workout, it locks out the touchscreen because touchscreens don't work underwater. Great. They added in a new button this year called the Action button, this orange thing, that is supposed to give you a little bit more flexibility for when your touchscreen's locked or when you're wearing gloves and stuff. Honestly, as I've skied once this season and I found it really hard to activate. I was using the app Work Outdoors to track my skiing, so that app doesn't support the Action button yet. And this is the problem with depending on third-party apps. When you release new hardware, those apps have to update to support it. This is frankly, I think, stuff that Apple should have done built in on day one. If they had good workout apps, I wouldn't have to use an app like Workout Doors. No offense to that developer, I love that app, but why didn't Apple just build a good app from the outset like Garmin does for all of their workouts? So here I am using Workout Doors. It doesn't work with the always on display because again, the app hasn't been updated to support that because it's a fairly recent addition to let apps use the always on display. And so I have to wake up the Apple Watch, then I have to press this awkward combination of buttons to pause and resume the workout. And when you're wearing gloves and you're out there skiing and you're as bad as I am, and so you're sweating and you're tired, it's just not something you want to do. And this is my big beef is the Garmin stuff just has these, this system of 5 buttons that just work. And yes, they have touchscreens on their new watches, but you can use the touchscreen or the hardware buttons. They let you do both. And Apple has, frankly, very primitive support for the hardware buttons. The action button is a start, but I think they need to, make it more powerful, make it more customizable in a more understandable way for people. Right now, you can trigger like Siri shortcuts with it and do stuff like that, but I don't think normal people are going to do that. So I just think Apple has really, in some ways, missed the mark with the Apple Watch Ultra. Now, like I said, the hardware is great. I think a lot of this can be fixed with software, and the reason I'm making this video is because I hope that Apple is thinking about these things, not just fixing the little things like the altimeter accuracy that I mentioned and bugs and things here and there, but I hope they're thinking about their direction in the future and their strategy. I hope they're going to release way more capable built-in workouts for stuff that's not just running. I mean, that's great for you runners. Apple Watch I think is great right now, but for everybody else, the built-in stuff just isn't cutting it, and we really have to depend on third-party apps. Let people download third-party apps, that's great, but don't make them pay for subscriptions and have to seek out and research new apps when they should just get great functionality with the watch they buy on day one for like $900. So that's kind of my plea to Apple. I hope they're thinking about that, and I hope they're thinking about in future models also maybe adding more hardware buttons because it is the Ultra, it's a big chunky watch. You're not making this for the most mainstream crowd, you're making it for more of an enthusiast fitness audience. So why don't you embrace that, Apple? I really hope they're thinking about this, and I hope that comes out. But yeah, those are just my thoughts. Some things I want to get off my chest, some regrets I have from switching entirely from Garmin to the Apple Watch ecosystem. It's been an interesting experiment, and I know people will watch this video and say, oh, well, what did you expect? I guess I frankly expected better from Apple, and maybe they'll deliver, but they've got a ways to go. So yeah, those are my ranty thoughts. Hope that made some sense to you. Comment if there are other frustrations you've had, I'm curious. I just mentioned a bunch. Also scuba diving, I don't do that, but Michael Fisher, Mr. Mobile on YouTube has a great summary of his experience with that, because that's another big marketing push Apple made, and it turns out that it's not an amazing scuba diving watch like Apple said it would be. So it just seems like for a lot of audiences, Apple is being very ambitious in their marketing, but the actual reality of the watch and what's built in is just not living up to that. So yeah, these are my thoughts. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you so much for watching.